I wish I had known sooner about these 5 phases that finally lost me 20 pounds forever. We'll start with phase 1, the overfat phase, which was where I started, and work all the way down to the healthiest lean phase. The key to breaking out of the dieting cycle was to work through each phase one at a time, because doing the right things at the wrong time will kill your results just as much as doing the wrong things. In preparing this video, I also looked at the data from over 1,000 people inside my Badass Body Loss program to define the real-life to-dos and, more importantly, not to-dos per phase. I'll also tell you the lifestyle trade-offs per phase, which have caused many of my clients to change their goal. So for fun, I'd love for you to comment below which phase was your goal and if it changed after hearing the trade-offs. The first overfat phase looks like this and maps to over 30% body fat for women and over 20% for men. But first, why use body fat and not weight or BMI? Because there's subcutaneous fat, the fat under your skin, and then there's visceral fat, the fat wrapped around your organs. You can have low subcutaneous fat, but high visceral fat, meaning your weight and BMI are normal, but in reality, your organs are being strangled by your visceral fat, meaning you have invisible poor health. This is why thin people can have diabetes and heart attacks, and why a person can look totally different at the same weight. Using body fat tells us if you're actually healthy. Now, there are upsides to staying in the overfat range. There's not much planning required. Socials, vacations, and holidays are all easy to tackle. The benefit is it's exactly what today's society is set up to make easy. The downsides are a shorter health span, even if not a much shorter lifespan, thanks to modern medicine, and less confidence to seize life by the horns. Romance, travel, body image, etc. are all affected. But the good news is the transition to the next acceptable phase, between 25 to 30% for women, 15 to 20% for men, is easy on the tactical front. The bad news, it's peak hard on the psychological front. Let's break it down. Because in the overfat range, your body has way more fat than it requires. When you do things to lose fat, your body lets go of its fat stores way more easily than in later phases. So easily that all the stuff you've heard, like cutting out carbs, skipping meals, and changing your entire life in one swoop, are, at best, making your life harder for no reason. At worst, make the peak hard on the psychological front even harder. This is what causes losing fat to be hard at this phase. You know this from your lived experience. When you've drastically changed how you eat or stacked on lots of exercise, your cravings have shot through the roof, your hunger has gone berserk, and you've fallen off the wagon despite seeing results. Imagine your body and mind are in a 3-legged race. If your body shoots ahead in losing fat, while your mind is lagging behind in its relationship with food and yourself, then they both trip and fail. Instead, your body must lose fat in small increments so your mind has hope of catching up soon. Your body and mind progressing in lockstep with each other is the secret to losing weight forever. Okay, so what's the small change? If you look at the metabolism pyramid, 20% of your metabolic rate comes from physical activity, while the main contributor to the other 80% is nutrition. So unless you enjoy it, you can defer exercising to later phases and focus only on getting nutrition right until the acceptable phase. But how though? There are millions of ways to get nutrition right, each with tons of testimonials proving they work. Wait, pause. Work as in work for a year or work for life? Studies show that in 5 years, most people regain nearly all their lost weight back. The reason? They can't keep doing the habits that got them to lose the fat. This means your focus must be to only do fat loss habits you can do for the rest of your life. And yes, this means if you're gritting your teeth through cutting carbs, not having dinner with your family, or doing anything that in the back of your mind you think, I'll do this until I get to goal and then I'll stop. Stop now. You're going to be back at square one anyway. So what's the point of wasting years of your life? But what if you can't imagine doing any fat loss habits for life? Are you doomed? I looked at the data from my 1,000 plus weight loss clients who had the same fear before working with me, that they'll feel restricted forever, and so what's the point? And found that they all stopped feeling restricted when they met themselves where they're at. What does this mean in practice? It means doing these 5 steps. First, use the calculator linked in the description below to find your calorie and protein target at which you won't be hungry and be able to eat largely the same way as you do now. Now, your mind may want more calories, but I'll address that in a little bit. For now, aim to stay under your calorie target, and it's okay to go over your protein target. But what about days when you eat out or have socials? Worry not. You can cycle your targets such that you set a higher calorie target on days you want to eat more and eat fewer calories on other days. But we know that no plan survives contact with reality. You know that your mind will make you want to eat more than your body needs through an infamous signal called cravings. Do you willpower your way through cravings? Absolutely not, because you know from your history that doesn't work. Instead, we're going to take advantage of a phenomenon found in all disciplines from physics to psychology, the observer effect. Specifically, when you get cravings, answer 3 questions in a notes app. 1. What happened just now that is causing these cravings? 2. What is my root need? Often, it's not food we want, but relief, connection, celebration, or something else. 3rd, what action did you take after answering the above 2 questions? It's okay for you to go for your craved food, and it's okay for you to go over your calorie target as long as you keep this journal up to date. It's surprising how our behavior changes with just pure observation. This is the observer effect. But then what about the times when you overeat not due to cravings, but just from how your routine is set up? Do 2 things. First, get a baseline of where your biggest calories are coming from by tracking your food for next 7 days in a calorie counting app. Then, after the 7 days, look at your data and identify the biggest calorie contributors. Good news, across my 1,000 plus clients, I've seen there are just 2 main patterns. The first is your routine causes certain meals to contribute the most calories. Create a habit to portion these meals to fit your target. Or your routine is the kind where you don't eat a lot at once, but rather you graze throughout the day, and this adds up. Create a habit to intermittent fast for 4 hours during the time you tend to graze the most. Put one or both of these habits into a habit tracker and track it daily. Do not have more than 1 to 2 habits that you're building at a time. Remember, small changes. But what if you do all of this and your weight loss is slow or stuck? This is why you want to use the body fat tracker linked in the description below to know if you're losing fat, not just weight. 1/3 of people lose fat while their weight stays stagnant for long stretches. And all of us have weeks when we gain fat because of stress, and in reaction, we tighten restrictions, when the way to lose fat again is to actually loosen restrictions. The body fat tracker tells you which of these cases you're in, so you don't sabotage yourself by making the wrong changes to your plan. Now, if you're thinking this sounds like work, 2 things. 1, data from my 1,000 plus clients showed they make it to this phase with cutting out just 1 junk and sweet a day every 3 months, meaning you'll still be eating mostly the way you do now. Second, this is the trade-off for making it to this phase and never again returning to the overfat phase. What you're really learning in this phase is how to create habits and manage your emotions in an area of life where you care more about the results than anybody else. A skill worth slowing down to master because it's the cheat code to your best life. Now, you look good at this phase, but not lean. You may want to continue into the next phase, but wait till you hear the trade-offs before you commit. Now, because you worked through your psychology in the previous phase and didn't blast through it with sheer willpower, you didn't, right? The psychological effort has become easy by this phase, allowing you to have energy left over for things to get tighter on the tactical front, which they have to for you to get to this phase. On the eating front, you'll have to continue to be in a 15% calorie deficit. Data from my 1,000 plus clients shows that by the time they get to 23% body fat for women, 13% for men, they're having max 10 junk, sweets, alcohol, and restaurant food per week. But what does this mean in real life? It means converting more of your food socials into activity socials, curbing late nights for good consistent sleep so you have fewer cravings and hunger pangs during the day, and planning more of your meals as you're not having as many packaged foods anymore. Who remains in your friend circle may change as a result. But is that enough? No. Because you're quite lean now, your body isn't going to as easily let go of its fat stores. Now the 20% physical activity starts mattering. So, does that mean 5 times a week lifting weights and going on runs like all the fitness gurus say? Absolutely not, because exercise is still only 20% of your metabolism. Let's not invest 90% of our energy for a 20% return. Okay, but how? Out of the 20%, only 5% comes from formal workouts, while 15% comes from your part of day movement like light bouncing, walking around your home, catching the bus, etc. So start adding physical activity in this order. First, make sure you get at least 8,000 steps a day consistently for a month straight. Only once you're consistent at that, add 20 minutes constant activity once a week. If you have a fitness watch, it'll count these as intensity minutes or active minutes. If you don't have one, you can test if you're in the constant zone by literally trying to sing while you do the activity. And make sure you have to keep pausing to take a breath. and then try to talk and make sure you can talk normally without pauses. You're not supposed to find it intense unless you sing. The easiest type of can't sing activity is walking up slope or stairs. You can break up the 20 minutes to, for example, 5 minutes over 4 sessions in a day. Once you're consistently doing this once a week for 1 month straight, then aim for twice a week and keep building up incrementally until you're doing this 5 to 7 times a week. But why not just jump to 5 to 7 times a week? Because you will experience worse sleep, even if you can't tell, and therefore worse hunger and cravings, which would be a tragedy because nutrition is still 80% of your lever to lose weight. Anything you add must keep that lever steady. The upside of all this effort is you will look thin, your energy will continue to improve, and overall, you're headed to a longer health span. But if you want the more fit look, you'll need to continue to the next lean phase, 20 to 22% body fat for women, 10 to 12% for men. This is where I had been maintaining for the past 10 years, but it took me twice the time to be able to keep off these last 3% than to keep off the previous 9%. Because things are becoming poster child of healthy habits. On the eating front, I first stayed at a 15% deficit to cut to 20% body fat and then switched to intuitive eating for maintenance. But what does this feel like when you live it? I found if I ate 2 meals at a restaurant, I'd exceed the target. It took me a whole year to manage my emotions and get down to eating at most 1 meal a week at a restaurant. All others I made at home in healthy plate proportions. I also quit drinking alcohol and reduced my total junk and sweets consumption to max 2 to 3 thin squares of a chocolate a day and whatever I choose at my one restaurant meal. But you know what makes sticking to this eating plan impossible? Poor sleep. And you know what makes poor sleep inevitable? 1. Treating weekends differently than weekdays because your body has no concept of these. It needs predictability. So I made it a rule to wake up and go to bed at the same time every single day. But what use is getting into bed and not falling asleep? I found that if I ate within 3 hours of bedtime or was high energy from socials, it made falling asleep difficult. So that means I hang out with friends only on weekend afternoons and make an exception once a month for a special occasion. But you know what else causes tossing and turning in bed? Stress. How to decrease stress is out of scope for this video, but I'll share the main idea that's worked for me in case it helps you. Plan and execute out of stressful situations. Finding great friends who had similar goals took me 10 years, during which I felt quite lonely because I refused to fill my days with people who weren't kindred. Good thing, because the empty space allowed my present awesome friends to come into my life. Switching jobs took a year of building my resume outside work hours and many networking lunches. Moving away from cloudy, rainy Seattle to sunny Portugal took 4 years of cutting expenses to the bare bones. All took many years with no guarantee of success, but the momentum of action made the stress feel way less stressful to me because, well, no action means no change. So what choice did I really have anyway? So is this enough? Not quite if you want to look fit and not thin at this body fat percentage. On top of the physical activity in the previous phase, you'll need to add 2 things even while in a calorie deficit. 1, strength training. You're now lean enough for your abs to be close to your skin. Now you need to build up your abs so they tighten your stomach. You can do twice a week 40-minute full body workouts, or I personally prefer 4 times a week 20-minute workouts. Aim to make it to at least 80% of your planned strength workouts monthly. 2, because you're doing quite a lot of movement now, your muscles will start to tighten up and cause aches and pains. So you need to add stretching and mobility to your routine. To be honest, after hearing this, most of my clients change their goal to be in the acceptable or good phases. If you need a time estimate, all of this, including travel time to the gym and grocery store, takes me 23 hours a week or 3.3 hours a day, which sounds like a lot, but is basically replacing 50% of the average person's daily phone time, also known as my phone time before this phase. If you can build these habits, you look fit. But your abs still aren't magazine prominent. At this phase, you're so lean that
you're working with almost no wiggle room, right? You've got things like water under your skin that you're worrying about, like making your 6-pack into a 4-pack.
And since every gram of carb is stored with about 3 grams of water, you need to limit your carbs. Grains, bread, sauces, starchy vegetables and fruits, etc., to only post-workout meals or designated high-carb days. Junk, sweets, alcohol, and restaurant food is slashed down to 1 serving twice a month-ish. Your strength workouts need to become more optimized, consistent, and frequent. You build muscle mainly while sleeping, so you'll need to be ruthless about getting in 8 to 9 hours of high-quality sleep every night. If you work through each phase methodically, like I've laid out, you will be able to pause and maintain easily. Then when you feel ready for the next phase, you can continue. There's no rush. I personally paused at the good phase because the lifestyle felt like the right balance to me. I had no plans to get to the lean phase, but when I started getting interested in through hiking, my lifestyle naturally started changing to the habits required in the lean phase. It was a pull, not a push. But can you create this pull intentionally so you feel unrestricted throughout your weight loss journey? Absolutely. And you can do it in two ways. One, if you want my help in learning how to create this pull and shortcutting through all the trial and error to nailing the journey from phase to phase, then check out the free sneak peek into my Badass Body Boss program in the description and comments below. Or if you want to DIY it, then you don't want to ignore this video where I explain how to create this pull. It took me and my co-coach Lucy 10 years and $45,000 combined to figure all this out. So you don't want to miss the complete step-by-step breakdown here. And always remember, you can do it.